trust is not built in a day, it's built every day. And trust is being honest, not just with you, but with yourself. And that means not lying even about the little things.
After being lied to and just having so much dishonesty in our relationship, that was one of the biggest downfalls and definitely one of the biggest character flaws that ultimately drove this relationship apart. Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals from all over the world, welcome back to the Conscious Couples podcast. I'm going to try to bring the energy here. Emilia and I had a date day. And we were in the sun, fun in the sun, for 5 hours or so. What was the name of the place we went?
It was
Colt
State Park in Bristol, Rhode Island.
It's in Rhode Island. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But our energy is going to be a little different. It's Sunday night, late night, but we are here, always here for you. Today, we have a special episode for you. Episode number 66, Early Warning Signs That a Breakup is Coming. This is one of those event post recaps of what we found to be the most valuable. So if you did miss the Relationship Talks event, you're going to get a recap of it here, which is going to be really good. Before we jump into this episode, another very special thank you and shout out to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show, audio, video, all of the rest. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sweetheart, what's your intention for today's episode? Besides not to fall asleep.
Well, this will be fun. So my intention is for our listeners to understand what are some of those early signs and what to look for. We had someone on Facebook who saw the promotion for this event really ask for like some of the signs. And this is that episode that's going to help those people who might feel like they're on the train track headed towards maybe a crash, letting you discern the difference between whether or not you're headed towards a train crash in your relationship, or if there is an opportunity for you to course correct, i.e., where can you change destinations? Where can you change what you're doing now and what to look for so that you don't end up failing in your relationship?
Shout out to Tiff. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate you reaching out. Okay, so we have two triads in this episode. I'm just going to go high level here for a second. One of them is called the danger zone. No, that's what I call it at the event. But it's really called the triad of disaster. And it's a simple triangle, 1, 2, 3. Bottom left is a 1, upper part is a 2, bottom right is a 3. And these are the three basically things that you have to look out for. These are indicators that a breakup is most likely coming. And I challenged everyone at the event. I said, before we jump into these, I want to see if anyone can come up with any breakup they've ever had that can't be correlated to at least one of these. And I don't think there was anyone who could deny that. And I know you and I have a lot of past relationships where there were these things present. So Emilia is going to go through each of those in the triad of disaster and give you an example of each. And then I'm going to talk high level about what we talked about, which is the second triad, which is the triad of abundance. So the triad of abundance, which is what to do about this. So you want to get out of the triad of disaster and into the triad of abundance, and we're going to teach you how to do that today.
Definitely. And if you're a visual learner, please look in the show notes because we have a digital asset that you can look and visualize this so that you can kind of walk through this triad with us. But to keep it kind of simple. So in this first triad of disaster, we all have likely been there in one way, shape, or another when it comes to relationships that maybe didn't work out. For me, the first element of the triad of disaster was very evident in one of my past relationships. And it was so evident because every time that this past partner would get into a car there was always so much speeding. And we all know speed kills. It can kill. And unfortunately, some people do have people in their lives who they know that have gotten in a car accident or have gotten hurt just by speed itself, right? And when you are a driver behind the wheel, you have the control around that car. And my partner, my past partner, every single time, whether it was like peeling out of the driveway or in a past argument, there would always be speed whenever we were in the car. And I remember always feeling so unsafe every single time I drove with him. And this element of the triad of disaster was all about arrogance. This partner was so arrogant when it came to driving, and it was almost as if he was untouchable. And if you've ever been in a car with someone who feels that way, it is extraordinarily unsettling. And so this is the first element of the triad of disaster. If you know, whether it's speeding or anything else in your relationship where there is a high degree of arrogance, you are on those tracks to a steady breakup. Because ultimately what I felt in that position, where a lot of people will feel.
Oh no, that's me.
Oh.
Yeah. I just had an itch. I shaved earlier,
Gotcha,
love, so I had a little itch. Emilia, for those of you just on audio, Emilia saw me
do a really obvious,
yeah.
You got something in your teeth kind of thing, but on your cheeks. So I was like, oh no.
Although honestly, when we had Subway earlier, you had like a bunch of mustard.
Yeah.
Or no, sweet onion sauce.
Mustard.
Sweet onion sauce.
Okay.
I had mustard.
Perfect.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Continue.
So kind of jumping back into this, you know what it feels like when someone is very arrogant.
Let's define arrogance real quick.
I would say extremely disrespectful and believes way more in themselves than they've actually merited. So for example, in this car, very high degree of confidence with zero humility around speed. So even though they've been in the car for however old they are, they think that they can avoid every single situation. No humility.
Right. So arrogance is high confidence with low competence. High confidence with low awareness. So in the US alone, there's 39,000 motor vehicle deaths per year. And so arrogance is thinking that you're above that statistic.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of arrogance. So I want to move to the next one now, but now everyone out there listening, think, okay, am I being arrogant in my relationship? Is my partner being arrogant? In other words, high confidence with low awareness, high confidence with low competence. So me, when I was young, 16 years old, got my driver's license, I was going way too fast without the capabilities. I'm not a race car driver. What am I doing? Right.
Yeah.
And so luckily I grew out of that phase quickly.
Yeah.
Continue,
the second element of the triad of disaster that is a very early warning sign when it comes to a relationship breakup. And again, we've all had that feeling, that gut check feeling of when we've been lied to, especially when it comes to a past partner or partner. The second one is dishonesty. And dishonesty really showed up for me in a past relationship. Unfortunately, that same relationship. So I had two. So I was really headed for the waterfall cliff hang off.
You were headed for a breakup, and I'm grateful.
Yes, as am I. But this individual, really struggled to be honest about his usage around cigarettes. And I've talked about this before on the podcast, and I also talked about this in the event to really drive this home. But this partner just like they started to kind of dabble in cigarettes, and then they eventually like became addicted. And then like every single time, because I was so anti-cigarettes, because I'm so pro-health, I would really try to work this individual, this past partner through this whole addiction and wanting to see this person thrive. Because at the time, like I thought I really loved this person. And it's like, I don't want you to be smoking cigarettes, actively hurting your health. And so it got to a point where I was trying to help. And I still smelt that cigarette smell. When he would come visit me at college, it would still be like, he found a cigarette in his car. Oh, I found a pack. Even though the conversation, the dialogue around that was, I've quit, I'm quitting, or I've gotten help, or whatever it was.
Someone else put the pack in my pocket.
Yeah, this is my buddies, like any excuse, And so like after being lied to and just having so much dishonesty in our relationship, that was one of the biggest downfalls, and definitely one of the biggest character flaws that ultimately drove this relationship apart. So that's the element number 2, is dishonesty.
So far we have arrogance, number 1, and dishonesty, number 2. And we are going to go into the triad of abundance after this third one,
Yeah.
which is we're not going to focus just on the problem. We're going to focus also on the solution.
Definitely not. And I want to make sure that, you know, like Alan said at the beginning of this episode, for all of our listeners, like when we did this event, it was like staggering. No one raised their hand when it came to like, oh, gee, like, did you not have any of these in your past relationships?
Yeah.
No hands were raised.
Yeah.
Okay, hands raised if you've ever experienced this in your past. Everyone's hand
raised
went
their
up.
hand. Yeah.
Right.
We also did a poll, I think. Did Jesse do a poll? No, we should have.
No.
I've been doing a lot of polls lately.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking of book club.
Yeah.
But, okay, one more thing I want to share. I shared this at the event.
Mm-hmm.
This is a spectrum. It's not like you're arrogant or not.
Yes.
It's not like you're dishonest or not.
So important.
It's to what extent.
Yeah.
Emilia and I have had some dishonesty in our relationship, but it's very, very minor. It was like, you know, I have a meeting in 15 minutes when in reality it was right then or whatever.
Right.
So everything's a spectrum. It's not like you have these or you don't. It's every relationship has dishonesty. Every relationship has arrogance. Every relationship has this next one, but to what extent? And if you're near a 10 in all three of these, you're going to break up no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
If you're maybe a 1 or a 2, you're most likely still in the triad of abundance, which we're going to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last one of the triad of disaster, this is the danger zone that you can look for in terms of early warning signs, just priming your brain. If this happens to you, you know that you're heading in a direction where Alan's solutions can help change the course. This is immaturity. And when it comes to what that looked like in my relationship, what I want to share with each one of you so that you can kind of be like, oh yeah, no, that wasn't me. That was actually them. Let's say we actually got in a car, right? This past relationship. Again, this is the same relationship. So we had all three. So we were destined to break up, genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
And I had let it go on way too long.
Not if you had come to this relationship talks event.
It's very true. I
Which
would have
didn't
had
exist
an honest
because
conversation.
you
right?
and
I was out here
yeah.
screwing everything up and building my awareness to now bring to all of our listeners
Literally.
of what not to do.
We have made the failures for you. Listen to the show.
Definitely.
Every episode it only takes you 20 minutes of your time, but it takes us years of pain of ours.
Decades of ours.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's up, everyone? I'm Sarah Pringle, and I want to share my experience with my relationships coaching with Alan and Emilia. So first of all, it far exceeded expectations. I was definitely nervous going into it, but they carry such an I got you energy, and we went the direction that I needed to go and dug through the layers that I needed to connect back to the relationships I currently have in my life. The most empowering part was them helping me realize that I have the power to attract any relationship into my life that I want, and that I have the ability to create the most beautiful relationship with myself and understand others at such a deeper level. They're this beautiful balance of yin and yang and masculine, feminine, and I'm so beyond grateful for all the magic that they're creating and putting out there, and all the beautiful, fulfilled, conscious couples that they're helping all over the world.
This relationship, picture we were getting in the car, like for example, after a party, after a family gathering or whatever, right? This individual, not only do I find a pack of cigarettes in the glove compartment or in the door, so there's lying going on, but also there's arrogance of like speeding out because he wants to look cool. But then all of a sudden I actually say something and confront the fact that there's this pack of cigarettes in the door and I thought you had quit. We've talked about this multiple times. Then on top of that, you're speeding out of the driveway and there's literally no need to do any of that. And by the way, I feel extremely unsafe.
Again, immaturity.
And because I'm voicing that, what is his response? It's mocking me. It's being disrespectful, waving his head around like, oh, we're going too fast. Like, oh, I'm big deal. Making what was a big deal for me very small. So emotional immaturity is that third one that just drove it home for me. And I know for a lot of our listeners, if you ever have those types of behavioral patterns in your relationship, it's really easy to tell yourself a story that like, oh, it's going to be fine, or, oh, that's going to change. That stuff does not change on itself. And emotional immaturity is such a great early warning sign if that is in your relationship and there is no change to the solutions that Alan's is going to bring Alan is going to bring in here.
Alan's is.
Alan is going to bring in here.
That
I'm
was
getting
my
all
nickname
jacked
when I was
up.
a little kid. Alan's is. Literally. I had an aunt, I think, who called me Alan's is. Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah, so for me, it was the mocking. It was the rolling the eyes. It was belittling what I said, disregarding and disrespecting what I said. When I actually felt unsafe, I was lied to. Like, it just, all of these things that mattered to me did not matter to that relationship. And he couldn't go outside of his own focal point of his arrogant self to actually see what was best for the we. So for all of you, what I'm really excited for is the triad of abundance, which Alan, when we went through that in the event, it was so cool to be able to share with all of our individuals that showed up for that event. Shout out to you guys and gals, because we really got a lot of positive feedback around this, because all of us have gone through or experienced some of these early warning signs, but yet very few of us have actually gotten tools or a deeper understanding of what can we do to course correct. And that's where I'm super excited for all of our listeners to be able to hear from you, babe, because that is absolutely essential. None of these tools were really brought in. None of us were taught any of this stuff growing up. I know you and I just failed our way forward, and that's where all of our listeners get the benefit of that. It's a really empowering thing. And a lot of the people in attendance were talking about what is even the purpose of relationships after the event. So I want our listeners to be able to have the hope and the aspiration and the willingness to kind of do things a little bit differently, or at least have the feeling as though that tool can be applied in their relationship, just like they did in the event. So all on you, babe.
Okay. All right. So that was the first triad. Again, the bottom left was arrogance. Upper part was dishonesty. Bottom right was immaturity. That's the triad of disaster. Before we get into the triad of abundance, I just want to say that I have been guilty of all three of those: arrogance, dishonesty, and immaturity in my past relationships. And I take ownership for that, which we're going to talk about. But if you are in that same boat and you say, you know what, honestly, I've been arrogant, I've been dishonest, I've been immature. Okay, identifying that, you're never going to solve a problem you don't admit you have. So the first one, that brings me to the first point of the triad of abundance, is humility. Take ownership. And then the second one is trust. So it's humility, trust, and ownership. I'm going to take ownership for the fact that I've been arrogant and dishonest and immature in the past. When I met Emilia, I said, I'm doing this one right. I have to do this one right. And I didn't have this triad at the time, but I knew that I wanted to be honest. I told you I'd never lie to you, those things.
Yeah.
Okay, so number one is humility. What is humility? Obviously, the opposite of arrogance. It means that you know cars are dangerous, and it means that you know that you don't know everything, and it means that you know your partner is better than you at certain things. An example of humility would be Emilia and I, we have a thing called strategy session. So earlier today, we were at Colt State Park in Bristol, Rhode Island, and she knows the area better than I do. So I let her lead. I'm not going to tell us where we should go and what we should do. She has higher awareness than I do. So that's humility.
You actually asked. You asked and you encouraged. That's a really big part of humility. And that's what I experienced today. And I just want to make sure that I share that with you, because
What do you mean?
you had actually asked, babe, can you lead? And you encouraged me to lead when I had that higher awareness. Just different in terms of the let. It wasn't like, oh, like, here you go.
Yeah.
You did that. But in humility, especially your humility, which I value so deeply, is you actually ask, hey, do you mind leading? Like, I know, and you give me that credit that I've earned through merit, and you empower me to really step into that leader role. That's huge humility that I am so grateful for.
Thank you, sweetheart. Well, I think, and again, this is very rational, but it makes no sense to have the person with less awareness lead.
Egos struggle with that, though.
Yeah. Well,
arrogant egos.
Yeah, arrogant ego. So the solution to the first one is to not be an idiot. I'm kidding. The issue to the first one is to be humble, to know what you know and know what you don't know. Very important. Number two is trust. Trust is not built in a day; it's built every day. And trust is being honest, not just with you, but with yourself. And that means not lying even about the little things. I joked at the event about I did laps at a lake that we were at, and I told her I did 4 laps because I wanted to look all cool, and then immediately I was like, did I just lie to her face? Oh my God. And then like 2 seconds later I was like, sweetheart, honestly, I only did 3. I'm sorry. And I had some shame around that because it's like, okay.
You're still cool, babe.
I embellished.
You're
Thank
still
you,
really
sweetheart.
cool.
3 is just as cool.
Yeah.
It's not. And then number 3 is ownership. If you want to know the signs of immaturity, by the way, and we have actually a PowerPoint presentation with all these signs. If you want to reach out to myself or Emilia, we can give you that PowerPoint.
Definitely.
But one of the biggest signs is seeking attention.
Mm-hmm.
Another huge sign is the inability to take ownership.
Mm-hmm.
If someone cannot take ownership, they are very immature. Ownership is, honestly, that's my bad. That's on me. I'm sorry. I will do better.
Mm-hmm.
The people who have low self-belief tend to avoid any ownership because they don't believe they can do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that person didn't believe they could quit smoking, then why would they admit to it? They'd rather lie and deceit. Whereas if they believed they could, maybe they would be vulnerable, say, listen, I'm having trouble, and then they actually would work on it, right? So that's really the last thing that we have here. So that's the triad of disaster. That's the triad of abundance. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We got to jump. So if you do want to talk more about this, if you do feel like you've been arrogant or dishonest or immature, reach out to Emilia and myself. We do relationship talks coaching with couples all over the world, also individuals. Please reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. Free 30 minutes. It usually goes a little longer than that. And I can guarantee you that that can shift your life forever. The link will be in the show notes.
Also in the show notes will be the link to register for our next event. So every single month, we make sure that we host a live, free virtual event for all of our listeners. Is this event
on how to speed out while smoking cigarettes?
Definitely not. I don't think I'd be an effective teacher at that. But this is cultivating healthy masculine with an empowered female. So this is going to be June 8th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please note the time change. We're going to push it back an hour. Mm-hmm. And I'm super excited for that one because one of the things that we've heard from our conscious couples community is some of the challenges in what it's like to be a healthy masculine as you're with a partner that is a really empowered female. We have a lot of empowered females that are really starting to come out of their shell and really starting to like rock their socks off with whatever it is, business or whatever lights them up. And there's a lot of guys that are having trouble in that. And so we're super excited to be able to share what we've learned through our coaching with couples and what we've learned from the community in terms of how to cultivate that healthy masculine, which, babe, I think that you do an incredible job at. That I know there's going to be so many benefits for the masculines out there that are struggling in this regard, right? Maybe their egos are being challenged in this regard, or maybe even that empowered female saying, you know, I'm trying to help you gain all of these awarenesses that are on the Conscious Couples podcast or whatever. And, you know, some of that power struggle is happening in the relationship. So this is a great event for all of you that might want to benefit in your relationship when it comes to these power dynamics, and do so in a way that really can cultivate a long runway and have that love be protected and honored along the way, instead of having these ego bonkings when it comes to relationships.
So at the event, I admitted this. I said, Emilia is the most growth-oriented person I've ever met. And she's 28 years old and I'm 76. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We said that at the event. It was pretty funny. But no, so I'm 34 and she's 28. And I said that me at 28 would not have been able to be with her at 28. And the reason why is because I was not as mature or as growth oriented as she is. Mm-hmm. And someone asked at the event, like, well, what would you do? Is there a way you could have come up? And my
question.
answer was, yeah, I could have been more humble.
Yes.
I could have been, taking more ownership and more growth oriented. So if you feel like you are more mature than your partner, this is probably a really good event for you, because people would ask me, you're an incredibly empowered woman and I'm 34 years old. Luckily, I'm secure because you have so much self-belief and you have so much big goals and dreams, and you and I work as a team. And I know that in a past version of myself, let's say I was in my early 20s or mid 20s, mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have been able to be with someone like you. My insecurities would have been too great, probably. Mm-hmm. And again, that's the humility to actually admit that And so it took me 30 years to attract you into my life, love. 30 years of growth, 30 years of experience, knowledge, skills, all of that. So if you are feeling like this event will help you, please join us. Again, note the time change. We usually do 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now we're doing 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from now on because Emilia and I need some quality of life changes because we've been burning the candle at both ends. All 4 ends, depending on what kind of candle. And
probably Roman candle, like the one that lit our house on fire almost. Okay.
Quick side story. Emilia and I are dancing in the living room randomly to like Beauty and the Beast song or something.
This was like, mind you, like probably 3 months. 4 months.
3 or
this
4
was our
months
first
into
winter.
Yeah,
in
3 or
this
4
home.
months into living together.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I turn and I go, sweetheart, is that supposed to be happening? And one of the candles was like a flamethrower situation. It was a whole thing. Anyways, we're not going to bore you or take any more of your time. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
But we can't tell them what didn't happen. So obviously this didn't blow down, but both Alan and I look at each other and go, what do we do about this? And Alan's just like pointing, like, you know, the girl from The Ring that just like points. That was Alan. So
I don't know what to do.
I go over, grab the torch, and literally, like, you don't know what to do because there's on the outside of this candle that the stuff is burning. So there's a torch that's in our home.
Yeah.
Literally, I go outside and just like picture like hard stomp into the snow that was on the deck. So like, thank goodness there was snow on the deck and we didn't shovel. But yeah,
luckily
anyways,
we didn't shovel that.
Story time over.
Yeah, story time over. Thank you all so much for bearing with us and that story. And do not buy candles from that company. I'm not sure which company it was.
It was a gift, so I think
someone
someone was trying to, sabotage us.
Be safe with your candles. That's the moral of the story. Yeah. All right, we got to jump. As always, it's not about me or you. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is Lazaros88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.